Welcome everyone to the meeting of the Halifax Regional Water Commission Board of Commissioners for March 26th. I'd like to begin, before we get into the formal agenda, by thanking Jeff Langley for his service on the commission as a commissioner. Unfortunately, Jeff, due to some personal reasons, has had to resign as a commissioner, and we wish him well in his other endeavors. Coming to the agenda, there were no in-camera motions, so there's nothing requiring ratification. Item number 2 is the approval of the order of business and approval of additions or deletions. Are there any additions or deletions to the order of business? Hearing none, would someone like to move a motion that the agenda be approved? Commissioner Steele. And a seconder, Commissioner Cuttle. All in favor? The agenda is approved. The minutes of the regular meeting of February 27, 2026 have been circulated. Are there any additions or deletions or changes requested to the minutes? Not seeing any. Would someone like to move a motion in regard to the minutes? Commissioner Deagle-Gammon, seconded by Commissioner Steele. In favor? I'm reminded the motion passed. There is no business arising from the minutes. So that brings us to 5.1, the operating results to January 31st, 2026. Mr. de Montfort.
Thank you. Good morning. Louis de Montfort. I'm the CFO for Halifax Water. I flag a couple of things in the report. The first one I always start with is our cash balance at the end of January of $87.6 million. So we continue to have a healthy cash balance. As of this morning, it was remaining around 84 million. So in a healthy situation. Nicole, can you go to table 3, please? So this is our summary of the financial results. There's lots of detail in the report that explains it. The main issue here is our current deficit at the end of January was just under 24 million. And if you can, and I think the one thing I would flag here is our operating revenues continue to go up, which is positive. The consumption revenue, as we have talked about before, continues to drive that increase. If you can go to the next table, please. This next table is the operating results by service, by water, wastewater, stormwater services. You see the breakdown. Our water deficit is at this stage a little bit higher than we would have expected, not significantly. Wastewater is I'd say about half of what we would have expected it to be at this stage, driven by slightly higher revenues and expenditures that are slightly lower. So the two combined have driven up or driven down the amount of the deficit. Stormwater of approximately 2.5 million. Again, that's slightly lower in terms of a deficit than we would have expected. And with that, the team and I are happy to answer any questions.
Any questions of Mr. de Montfort on the operating results? I don't see any. I have one, Mr. de Montfort. If you go back to table 3 for a minute. Am I reading that correctly? Under the bottom line, losses for the year, that as of January, a couple months before year end, the loss is approximately 9 million less than was budgeted?
That would be $10.4 million less than budgeted.
10.4. So that's obviously a positive variance.
Yes, it is.
Is it anticipated that that will continue through to the end of fiscal year?
Yes. No, not probably not quite that high, but with the increase in revenues from the rate increase in January, plus what we've seen already, the trend on our primarily the wastewater side being lower than was budgeted, we anticipate to have a lower deficit than was originally budgeted.
Thank you. Any questions arising from that? Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Montburn. Item 5.2 are capital expenditures as of January 31st, 2026.
And again, I can speak to this one. Nicole, if you can go to the table that is in the middle part of the second page. Thank you. So what we'll highlight here, we have of our total open work orders at the beginning of the year, we had $368 million of capital funding available. We had spent by March 31st, 2025, $115.6 million. So far, to the end of January, we've spent $88.7 million in the current year. So we still have a remaining balance of approximately $163 million. We continue to have expenditures, monthly expenditures in the range of $9 million. So we have, which is approximately what we would have had in the previous year. So we continue to spend money through the capital side. There is a short explanation of some of the reasons for slower expenditures in some of the larger projects that's in the report. But again, between Josh and his team and my team, we can happily answer any questions.
Commissioner Deagle-Gammon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Louis, can you just explain for everybody the budget we had for district energy was just over 1 million, but we spent expenditures to January 31st, 2026, 2.4 million. So we're in a deficit there. Can you just speak to how that's covered?
I think some of that is just the timing of some of our approvals and how they were recorded on the total budget available side. Josh may know the exact number that's been approved, but I think some of that may be an allocation between budget that's in maybe into the corporate side that potentially should be under the district energy side. Warren, I don't know if you can speak to that, or if Josh, you may have.
Yeah, I see James is on the call here. I don't have the exact approval number from the RAB.
Yeah, my apologies. I think that's more of an allocation issue of the total budget available than an overspend of the actual approved budget.
Yeah, the NSU ARB approved budget would be approximately $5.9 million.
Warren, is that a possibility that's just an allocation between?
Yes. The project originated as a corporate project, so I think some of the budgets is still sitting in that category.
Yeah, my apologies. We'll correct that for the next report.
So that the next time we look at it, we'll take some of the funding budget available at a corporate and put it in the district energy so that is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And just by way of clarification for me, so I'm clear on this, corporate is essentially a newer category that has been used to break out spending that goes across all 3 services or 4 services.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions relating to the capital spend? I just have one quick one for either Josh or Louis. At the end of the year, how is it anticipated the total spending will be in terms of the goals that have been set in the IRP for increased capital spending.
I can start. Louis, if you want to add anything, feel free. The current fiscal year for 25-26 or ending 25-26, the expectation is we'll probably be under that 135 due to some of the items that were discussed in that report. A big portion of that is dependent on the some of the invoices that typically come in towards the end of the year related on integrated projects with HRM, and those closeouts, which we are in the middle of that process at the moment.
Thank you. Any questions arising from that? If not, we'll move on to item 6.1. Quigley's Corner Pump Station Upgrade Request for Additional Funding.
Thank you. I can start. I have Rob Gillis here, Senior Manager of our Capital Project Delivery Team. Is going to give just a brief update on this project. This was before the board and as a previous matter, and we're back to seek additional funding, and that's the purpose of this report being in front of you today. So I'll pass it over to Rob for a brief update, and if there are any questions, we can take those.
Thank you, Josh and commissioners. The Quigley's Corner, we're seeking $5.562 million in additional funding for a total project cost of $11,362,000. This matter has been before the board back in January 2023. At that time, we went out to the market and we received a $13 million construction cost estimate. We reviewed that cost estimate and we felt that we could revise the scope and lower that cost for the upgrade of the facility. We've just recently tendered with a modified scope of work to reduce the risk for the contractor with regards to the bypassing of the station during the duration of the construction. And we were able to reduce the cost by just over $4 million. And now we're seeking the additional funding approval for the project. The project has been identified on the radar since 2009 and was formally added to the IMP in 2019 as a key piece of infrastructure for upgrading for the Eastern Passage area. Any questions?
Commissioner Purdy.
Thank you, and thanks for that. How often does this happen, that the RAB approves an amount and then the quote comes in like double or way higher than what it was originally expected to be? Is that a common practice, or is that like an anomaly?
You want to go, Josh, or you want me?
I can start, and then Rob, if you have any current projects that you want to speak to, that works too. I think generally speaking, it depends on the complexity of the project and how much risk the contractor is building into their price. I think it's a bit of a conversation around some of these procurement methodologies that we're exploring, that we have opportunities to share some of this risk upfront by using different procurement methodologies. So this one was a significantly higher tender price than we were expecting the first time around. I would say that is not typically the case. But back to your question of, does it happen where we have an approval from the RAB and the tender comes in and pushes it over? Yes, that does happen. I think the effort the team takes is to seek the approval from the RAB with with a certain level of certainty in the price so that it doesn't impact the overall project schedule. And ideally, we get that approval in hand, the tender closes, and we're able to proceed immediately. Sometimes we do get in the situation where the approval isn't sufficient and we have to go back.
Okay, are there, yes, Mr. Gammon?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Rob and Josh. So even if we approve this recommendation that's in the report right now, it still has to go to the Regulatory and Appeals Board to get it approved by them, right?
That is correct.
And in the report, it's pretty evident that those works needs to be done, right? That it's end of life system or whatever they call it, obsolete system. Where does this money come from? Like, where is this in our budget?
So the additional funding would come from projects from previous years that have either been closed under budget, morphed into new projects and the funding was never used, or projects that have been deferred to future years. So, and I'll pass to Louis, maybe there's a connection to the table that was in the previous report, but that's essentially where we pulled the money from.
So the end of the story is, though, that we can afford to do this increase. We can afford to do this project at this increased cost.
Yes, the funds are in that accumulated or that opening balance that you saw in that previous report.
Great, thank you.
Are there other questions? I have one just for my understanding. As I understand, the budgeted amount was 5.8. The original proposal was 13.2 million. To reworking the scope of the project and presumably working with the proponent, that was reduced to 8.5 or $4.5 million saving. But the overall project cost isn't 8.5, it's 11.3 when you add in the other components that are in the appendix about other staff costs and other things. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah, so essentially by working with the proponent, you were able to quote unquote save $4.5 million.
Yep.
Correction, Commissioner, we weren't working with the proponent. We did internally with our consultant to revise the scope of supply and then went subsequently out to tender again.
Oh, okay. And the second tender came in $4.5 million.
That is correct. Correct.
That's great. Thank you. Any other questions coming from that?
I can put the motion on the floor if you like.
Yes, Commissioner Gammon.
Recommendation that the Halifax Water Board approve the additional funding in the amount of $5,562,000 for the Quigley's Corner Pump Station Upgrade Project for a total project cost of $11,362,000. This sum would include the previous board-approved project funding of $5.8 million.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Commissioner Steele? All those in favor? Contrary minded? The motion is passed. Thank you, Rob and Josh, for that. The next item on the agenda is item 7, the spring debenture.
Again, happy to talk to that. Halifax Water is requesting approval to issue $45 million in debentures to fund assets that have been completed and are in service. This is half of the total amount that the Regulatory Appeal Board approved. In the rate application, they approved $90 million. So this is the first half of that being requested this time.
Are there questions about the spring debenture?
Put the motion on the floor if you like.
I have a couple questions, if I could. The maximum all-inclusive rate is not to exceed 7%. Can you indicate, Mr. de Montbrun, what the anticipated rate might be?
The anticipated rate is closer to 4%. We use the recommended rate that's there, the all-inclusive rate that we present is the rate that the provincial government suggests we use when getting our approvals, and that gives a little bit of cushion that if, and we've had cases in the past where the rate that we used was close, and then it ended up being over what was approved. The actual rate was over what the board would have approved, and that would have required us to come back and get a secondary approval. So they recommend we go on the high side. That's the 7%. Our current estimate is that it will be in the 4% range, depending on what's happening out in the market and any issues associated with the debt rating of the provincial government.
And the second question I have is about the 30-year amortization term. There was some discussion, obviously, about terms during the most recent general rate application at the NSRAB. At this point, and perhaps you can explain for me, does Halifax Water have any option other than to go with the 30-year amortization period?
We could go for terms that are shorter than that, and what that does is increases our annual cost. In the last 5 years or so, we actually moved from a 20-year period to 30. We are going to the next rate application required to have conversations with the provincial government about opportunities to go longer than that. And I think we've talked about it in the past. The longer we go, similar to anybody's mortgage, the longer the amortization period, the more interest we're paying. So it may decrease the amount each year, but it certainly increases fairly significantly the overall cost to the utility. So we are balancing that. In our current application, we proposed to fund our debt over the 30-year amortization period. So we're continuing to use that 30 years in this request.
So that's what that currently has been approved by the NSRAB.
That is correct.
Thank you. Someone like to put the motion on the floor?
I can do that, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Deagle-Gammon.
That the Halifax Water Board approved the financing of $45 million with a 30-year amortization term and finance over 10 years. The maximum all-inclusive rate not to exceed 7%.
Is there a seconder? Commissioner Steele. All those in favor? Contrary minded, the motion is passed. Thank you. The corporate balanced scorecard.
Commissioner Purdy has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Purdy, I missed that.
No, it's okay. I'm just so sorry. I'm going to have to leave in a couple of minutes to get to Transportation Standing Committee over in City Hall. So I can continue listening on my phone, but I don't know whether that counts for quorum. Would we have?
Usually they are virtually.
We'll still have quorum.
Still okay for quorum.
Still be
but
virtual. I won't be able to, because if I'm driving, I won't be able to mute myself or take myself camera in order for you to see me vote. So.
Well, I think that there might be one more voting option, but no, I think we're still okay for quorum. So, yeah.
Okay, well, I'll continue to listen on my phone so I don't miss anything. And okay, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry
No
about that.
That's okay.
No, that's quite all right. We're running a bit long today.
All right, and in giving that, I know that other commissioners may have to exit, so I will kind of condense this review because a lot of it is annual update to our corporate balance scorecard, which is an established program whereby we set targets for the utility to achieve each year. So we're bringing forward today proposed targets for the 26-27 fiscal year. And those are in the report, and as you can see on the screen, We're not making any major changes to the targets right now because we have another exercise underway through our business plan this year to look at level of service. And so we want to better inform a more holistic review for next fiscal. But for today's purposes, we do want to bring forward the proposed targets and get approval from the board, hopefully on those. I do want to highlight one change in the financial regulatory, and it's pertaining to what is our gateway. Historically, we had a ratio of operating expense and revenue ratio, but in light of the rate changes, it's going to impact the revenue that we'll be achieving. And so we adjusted the target slightly that the operating expense, excluding depreciation, are less than the budget by at least $1 million. And it's going to be a yes/no metric. And if you can go to the next slide, Nicole, there's a bit more language on the justification. And it's just so that the old metric, the way it was done, potentially could have been skewed by the rate increase. And so we've made that adjustment to that. And if there's it's probably easier to take any questions on that right now, where it's front of mind if there are any.
And this would be an improvement in which way, Mackenzie?
And Louis, did you want to speak to the improvement?
Happy to. What would happen under the older measure is when we had a rate increase like we did, we traditionally budget without rate increases. The rate increases actually drive up our revenue, which makes the target, if I can say, easier to achieve or almost guaranteed. An increase in the revenues in many cases will offset any increases in expenditures. Under the old measure, in this case, it forces us to budget well on our expenditures. It forces us to look at our operating costs and make sure we are focused on reducing those costs. And when we reduce those costs, that gives us the ability to pay the organizational award.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, it's just the continuation of improving the fiscal responsibility and establishing better processes in place. So that's one of the changes to the scorecard. Nicole, if you could go to the next slide. We maintained basically the same metrics for health and safety. We made some adjustments last year, and so that we had modified those. And again, we'll be looking at this current fiscal for any adjustments going forward. Next slide, please. And operational excellence, same message. We haven't made any changes to the structure. We are still enhancing and working through what we did last year for changes. And again, we'll be looking at this fiscal. Next slide, please. Under the people, we did make one adjustment. Historically, we had the employee satisfaction survey result, and it was a letter grade. And we're proposing to change that one to an employee engagement index score. And Nicole, if you could go to the next slide, there's a bit more language on the justification. And Ashley Kendall is here to speak to it if there are any questions, but we're looking at something that captures a bit more the aspects as we combine them all and the overall employee engagement and different ratings and capturing those on those questions that we ask our employees. So it's a bit more comprehensive, we think, than the letter grade that we've been measuring against. So if there's any questions, we can take those.
Any questions on that point? No, hearing none.
Okay, so so to the next slide, please, Nicole. So I'm not going to go into too many of these because you'll see this again in June when we come back with the results of this current fiscal. So we're continuing to measure, and we'll be tallying up after April 1st next week and getting back to you in June with the outcome of 25-26 and whether or not we meet the criteria and the scoring that we hold ourselves accountable to each year.
And these, what we're considering now, are the metrics for the coming fiscal year.
Correct, yeah. So we have to look at what are we measuring ourselves against for the fiscal 26-27. And so we want to set those and have those in place prior to the start of the fiscal year, which would be next Wednesday. Next slide, please. And I'm just going to, again, there's a scoring metric. You'll see that again in June when we come back with our results. And this is well established. It's been the historical way that we've done this. Next slide, please. And again, it's how we award if we are, if we historically have scored and met the goals of 7 out of the 12 and the 2 gateway indicators, then the award can be awarded to our employees. And also the thing to remember is that one of the gateways is the financial, that we have had the appropriate operating expense and revenue ratios in order to pay the award out so that it's self-contained within the program itself, so to speak. Next slide. So if you recall last year, when we brought forward the report, one of the recommendations was for staff to review, should there be another measure or metric related to the corporate balance scorecard as we look at the fiscal health and the current deficit situation that we're facing, and trying to balance that issue that is in front of us. So we have proposed an additional metric that could be attached to not only the scoring that I just mentioned, but whether or not we want to consider if there's a budgeted accumulated deficit of over $1 million or greater, that in any fiscal year that the award not be issued to employees. So we wanted to put that forward for the board's consideration. And I believe that is the conclusion of the presentation.
I have one question before I go around to the board for questions. On that last point, the accumulated budgeted deficit, is my recollection correct that that is currently at 41 million?
That is correct, yes.
So for a corporate balance scorecard to be paid out in the next fiscal year, it would have to be paid down by 40 million?
Correct.
Okay. Questions?
Well, I think, yeah.
Or comments?
I guess more a comment on the last piece. So, you know, the deficit is a result of Halifax Water not taking increases during COVID. So the accumulated deficit is not so much as a result of anything that our employees have contributed to in that sense, right? So although I understand we've got a deficit that we need to figure out, and we've made a plan and brought that plan through to the regulatory and review board about how to clear the deficit in as quickly a way as possible. And I think that we gave them a 3-year plan.
If I may, yes, you're correct. To the first point about the deficit, we did not increase our rates through the COVID years. So we had 2 rate applications where, for all being mindful of the constraints fiscally that our customers were going through during that period, we didn't increase our rates. And so unfortunately, that led to the increase that we had this past year, as well as the deficit accumulating. So, and then one of the things that we did put forward with the last rate application was a proposed deficit elimination strategy. And based on the decision from the board, we did not achieve that option. And so we still are faced with a deficit that we are going to be providing to the board in the fall, a new plan or approach. So we don't have the details of how long it will take to pay that down. I noticed that Louis put his hand up, and I don't know if it's to speak to that a bit more detail.
just for clarity, we did have increases in the second rate application that you mentioned. They were just much lower than would have been required to bring us and pay off an operator to break even. So we purposely kept it low, but they were increases, just for clarity.
And
Yeah, I guess I just, trying to figure out to put a metric in place for a corporate balance scorecard that the employees really can't contribute to whether it happened or didn't happen. I'm just wondering if that is a fair metric and if that decision on that particular metric needs to be made today.
And so, yeah, so basically, there's two things that we're looking for. One is just the basic approval of the corporate balance scorecard metrics and targets to implement for this fiscal. And then the secondary piece is whether or not we want to go forward with the proposed recommendation or put an alternative on the floor if that is something that you want further explanation or further exploration on. They're structured so that we can proceed with just on the corporate balance scorecard on its original metrics as they were. And then if the board decides, we can add this one in or we can revisit and come back with something else.
Okay. Commissioner Cuttle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so, I think, going forward as we start to look at how we're going to tackle the deficit, then this is something that we can consider. One idea might be looking at a graduated kind of rate for awards based on the level of the deficit. So it's not just 1 million or nothing, but realizing that this is something we all need to own. We all need to be working towards solving. But at the same time that, employees who didn't have a direct hand getting to us to this point shouldn't be shouldering the entire burden by taking away something that incentivizes good work ethic within the organization. So I'm guessing when as we continue to look at our strategy for the deficit, we'll be able to kind of look at some options for how we right size the award to make sure that it's appropriate. Thank you.
Commissioner Deagle-Gammon.
Thank you. So I do have, so we put the motion on the floor, but a different number 2. Procedurally, I don't know if we need to put this on the floor, defeat it, and then come back.
I think that there's no motion on the floor.
We haven't put the motion on the floor yet.
Yeah.
No, so we can just proceed.
You can just go with this motion.
Yeah.
So if, Mr. Chair?
If I might, before you do that, there's really 2 elements to this. One is the elements of the corporate balance scorecard, which Kenda has gone through. The second is adding an additional gateway related to the deficit. On that first part, are there any other questions about those components, or do we essentially have a consensus on that?
Yep.
So I think it's really around the deficit, and I think Mr. Deagle-Gammon has a motion which deals with both.
Oh,
No, sorry, Mr. Steele.
Thank you. My question relates more to, and I believe I know the answer to this, but we are expecting to be well above a $1 million deficit over the next few years. Maybe our CFO can just comment on that. So if we adopt the second measure, we're looking at essentially ensuring that we would not be doing awards under the corporate balance scorecard for quite a number of years. There is a possibility when we next go back to the Regulatory Appeals Board that could change perhaps, but maybe you can just clarify that.
So there are 2 types of deficits that we're talking about. One is our annual operating deficit, in this case, which we are budgeting for 26-27, a relatively small surplus in the range of $1 million. But we do have an accumulated deficit that, based on the budget for 25, 26, and the budget for 26, 27 will be is in the range of $41 million. We need to go back to the Regulatory Appeal Board and say our approach to recover that accumulated deficit from our rates is as follows, and we need to come up with that strategy, and that strategy will come to the board before we file. That may be over 2 years, it may be over 3 years, it may be over 4 years, and then so to the extent that we can only build that into rates over that extended period of time, we will continue to operate with an accumulated deficit for multiple years. So unless
Thanks,
they,
Louis.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Mr.
So
Gammon.
if we're ready, I would propose the following motion that the Halifax Water Board, 1, approve the corporate balance scorecard targets for the 26-27 fiscal year. And then 2, direct staff to further review the financial criteria for the evaluation of the eligibility of the payment of the award and report back to the board at the next regular meeting.
We have a seconded by Commissioner Steele. Any discussion on the amended motion or the motion that differs from that in the agenda, I guess? All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion passed. Thank you. The next item is number 9. It's the NSRAB Operations and Maintenance Audit.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm John Eisner, Director of Operations. I'll give you a brief audit or a brief update on the NSRAB O&M audit. To date, we've completed and shared the information requests that we received from Carollo back in January. Carollo has since been on site the week of February 9th at 3 of the water treatment plants, and the week of March 9th to 5 of our wastewater treatment facilities. Overall feedback from staff that participated in the audits was positive. They felt there was a lot of collaboration between us and Carollo, so it was a positive experience. We do expect to get another round of information requests from Carollo. No specific timelines on when to expect that, but I suspect it will be soon. And that's just kind of based on clarification of some of the stuff they would have seen during the audit. And they are still on track for a July 2026 completion of the report. So I'll take any questions if anybody has anything.
Okay. Are there any questions of Mr. Eisner concerning that audit? So essentially, Mr. Eisner, the process is continuing as one would expect, and we'll know the results shortly.
Yes, correct.
Thank you. And I guess tied into that in a relatively direct way is item number 10, the boil water advisory and the corrective action updates. Mr. Singer?
Yes, I'll speak to that if you can share that presentation. If you go to slide 3, I'll try to be a bit abbreviated. So you'll see a pooled category of corrective measures that were identified in the 2 post-boil water reports from the JD Klein facility. Boil water 1, BWA 1 refers to July 2024, and BWA 2 refers to January 2025. So you'll note continued progression since these updates have been giving. That progression continues. And so as you look at the completion rates based on those pooled corrective measures, they showcase here pretty precisely. So if you go to the next slide, please, Nicole. So those corrective measures can be broken down into different timelines. So we have short, medium, and long term. This slide shows boil water 1. Short term is complete. Since the last time I provided an update, medium term has moved from 60% to 80% completion. Medium term refers to completion with 1 to 2 years. Short term is less than 1 year, and long term is 5 to 10 years. So we continue to show progression of our deliverables on that front. If you go to boil water 2, please. Continued progression there as well. Short term, we've closed up another project there recently. Of that 27% remaining, there's 2 projects within that will complete the corrective measures. Those are well on track to be complete within April. Things are looking pretty promising there. So I expect the next time I come back to you, the short terms will be complete. Presently, the team is focused on wrapping up, closing out the short term. We have our plans in place to complete the medium terms over this coming fiscal year. So I'll continue to give those updates to the board over this time. So the following slides is a table view with additional details relevant to each individual corrective measure. So I won't go into into a deep dive on any one of these, but if there's any questions, I'm certainly happy to answer them.
Mr. Singer, are there questions concerning Ms. Cuddle? Commissioner Cuddle.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Great. So I really appreciate seeing the tables and the schedule of work, the short and the medium and the long term. I'm just wondering, in regards to the remaining medium term and the long term, are there things that are possibly impeding the implementation of these, or that could be done to accelerate them?
The medium terms, we are showing that we will have early completion on many of the medium terms. We're not expecting a delay there. If anything, the medium terms, if you saw from the Boil Water 1, we're already at 80% completion. There's a lot of interrelated projects that will drive the completion of corrective action. So we're doing a lot of parallel work presently. So we expect quite a pulse of medium term projects completion coming up within the next 6 months or so. So we're not anticipating any delays. We're actually on a very good pace presently. In terms of the long-term projects, those ones involve very large-scale infrastructure. So, for instance, reservoir construction, which of course is a very expensive project that has lots of regulatory obligations to meet and designs to meet. We have some electrical aspects there as well. And so those long-term are within our capital engineering team. And those ones are continuing the way our projects do. So I don't know if that completely answers your question, but.
It does. It might, just in future discussions about this, as we continue to monitor the progress, like looking at some of the dependencies, like the utility, like what is involved with, coordinating and collaborating with Nova Scotia Power, for example, on that piece, or building reservoirs with, Department of Environment, just so, or approvals from the RAB. I think some of the short terms are a lot of things we can do in-house and on our own, where some of the larger pieces, it's not just the scale of the work, but it's also the work process that as a utility we need to adhere to. And so just, shedding some light on that and, for discussions as we move forward. Thank you.
Are there other questions of Mr. Singer? If not, thank you, Jarvis. Appreciate your updates. And it certainly seems like, at least at this point, things are within the timeframes we would hope. I would suggest, with the concurrence of the other commissioners, that we defer considering item number 11, annual board compensation policy review, until our June meeting, given that a number of commissioners have to go to another meeting that starts at 1 o'clock and need to travel. If everyone is okay with that, perhaps we can do that. It's not a pressing issue, so are we fine?
That's great. Thank you.
You seem to be. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded by Commissioner Cuddle. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for your patience, and it's been a productive day. And we'll see everyone again in June, if not before.
Thank you.
Thank you.